Welcome to another edition of the Transfer Talk podcast, a special edition. We've got the technical director and the director of football here at Queen's Park Rangers, Les Ferdinand. Should that be Sir Les? Could you just explain how that came about, first of all, before we carry on?
It was Sir Les was saying I was labelled with by the Queen's Park Rangers supporters. Newcastle supporters think they were the ones that labelled me Sir Les, but no, it started here at Queen's Park Rangers, and I think it was a mix-up in a chant, but anyway, it came out as Sir Les and it stuck with me ever since. Been called a lot worse, I must admit, up and down the country.
It's not a bad name.
But by my own supporters, that's how I'm
right, let's just
known.
let you know what we're going to do. Is the Transfer Talk podcast, so that the clue's in the name. We wanted to take you back to your career, and this is when you reveal all to us, all the moves that happened and all the moves that didn't happen as well, that you weren't allowed to talk about back in the day. Let's go back to the beginning first. You began your career.
Not sure I can go back that far. I remember, mate.
Not that far. You're not that old. Non-league football. First at AEL, was a Copper Cypriot team in England, wasn't it? Then to Southall, then to Hayes. Looking back, if professional football hadn't worked out, what do you think you would have done?
Well, I was doing painting and decorating, I was driving a van, I was doing all sorts. I'd gone on to, back in the day, there was a thing called a YTS scheme. And I went on there to do computer repairs, and so that's where I probably would have looked to try and hone my skills. But unfortunately for me, football came in and interrupted.
So let's go now to QPR. It's amazing that it's almost come full circle now. You're the director of football here. When QPR came calling, can you explain what actually happened? Who called you? How did you end up here?
Well, I'd moved from Southall to Hayes, and then in my first season at Hayes, I was scoring goals on a regular basis. And then we used to have a scout here called Bobby Ross, who lived in that area, and I think on occasions he would go and watch the local side, which was obviously Hayes, and he saw me playing, came back, recommended me to the club, and then in that, Frank Sibley came to watch me after that. Peter Shreves came to watch me after that, and I kept hearing rumours about, different teams were interested in me and stuff like that. But just carried on playing football. I was 19, and I probably thought professional football had passed me by, because anyone who was going to sign me would have had to sign me as a pro. So I'd thought that it had passed me by, to be honest. And then I got this call saying that Jim Smith, QPR, are really interested. Jim Smith's coming to watch you, and he's coming with a briefcase to sign you. It
was obviously local club, local to QPR, so they had the scouts watching you. Were there any other clubs who you knew of that were interested? Yeah,
I'd always been told that when I was at Southall that Arsenal were always keeping a keen eye. Brentford was keeping a keen eye.
I just want to ask you about Turkey and Besiktas. We have so many stories about the rituals that they go through. Some of them seem to be quite mythical, but these things actually happen. Can you remember some of the stuff they did?
Yeah, I can. And that was sort of like, for me, that was the making of me as a player, making of me as a man as well, because I went to Turkey from QPR at 21 years of age. I was the first British player to ever play out in Turkey. So, it was a massive culture change. But Gordon Mill, who was the manager at the time, who was instrumental in taking me over there and working with me and giving me some good guidance, said to me, listen son, Jim Smith thinks you've got loads of ability. He said, and from what I've seen, I think you've got loads of ability. We just need to try and home it and see how we get it out of you, and this will be a perfect place for you. So it was a situation where I could go away for a year, totally concentrate on football. And as you talk about, the first day's training was done in front of at the stadium. It was like a carnival atmosphere. He said he just said to me it was just training in front of a few supporters, because of what they do. They introduced the new signings to the supporters on this certain day. So I went to the stadium. It was rocking. 35,000 people were in the stadium, and part of the ritual that they do over there, they slaughter a lamb at the start of the proceedings. You don't actually see it happen. As I came out, the lamb was lying there, and they dabbed the blood and make the sign of the cross on your forehead and on your boots. I don't know if they still do it. That's what they did back then. I always tell people the story about they gave me a dove. They give all the players that they think, sort of like 3 players who they think are going to be the key players from that season, a dove. And then what happens is, as you come out, you used to come up the stairs onto the pitch, and then you run to the centre circle where all the rest of the team was. And I remember going, and I tried to filter myself into the line, and they kept dropping me back, going, no, you're coming out last, you're coming out last. And when I came out, this big roar, I'm thinking, Jesus, this kid, I'm coming from a reserve team in England to this, and I'm getting this hero's welcome. Anyway, they give me this stuff, I get the centre circle, and I throw it up in the air, and it just goes, lands, and just bangs back down on the ground, and everything goes silent, and I think, could be in a little bit of trouble there. So I take it again, and I throw it even higher. It does exactly the same thing, and it comes to the ground, I'm thinking, oh no. And then this little old fella comes running on, and he kind of pulls the wings apart for me, like, and he goes, do now, so I throw it, and it goes, it flies away, and everyone's like cheering and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, I was sweating and everything, like, and I was thinking, and it was all right, and then, went off to Germany the next day, started pre-season training, and that was it, back and started scoring goals.
Now, you joined Newcastle in 1995. It could have happened 3 years earlier, couldn't it? How close was that?
The amount of times I was in my dad's house on a Sunday, I used to go and visit my dad and the family on a Sunday, and the amount of times I picked up newspapers saying I was at Liverpool, or I was having talks at Arsenal, or I was having talks here, and my dad was going, if you wasn't here with me right now, I'd be thinking you was, and I said, yeah, this is what happens, So there were loads of rumours about where I was going and where I wasn't going, and but I knew Keegan had been interested for a while.
In the summer of '94, you signed a 2-year contract extension at QPR, but a certain club called Manchester United were in for you, weren't they? How close was that to happening?
That was quite close. That was probably that was the one I did know about, to be honest with you. And the reason I knew about it was because the late great Ray Wilkins was at Crystal Palace at the time and called me and said, look, I've just had a conversation with a certain gentleman at Manchester United and wanted to know about your character. Said he knew what you was as a player.
By certain gentleman, you mean?
Sir Alex. So he said he knew what you was like as a player, but there was loads of rumours in the press at the time that I was a London boy and I didn't want to leave London, and that's why Newcastle, all these other clubs wouldn't fit me because I wanted to stay in London, which I'd never ever said to anyone. That it was just people making assumptions. And so he wanted to find out about my character. And Ray Wilkins at the time said to me, when the best team in the land comes calling, you've got to go. And he said, you've done all that you can at QPR, and I don't think the QPR supporters would begrudge you going to Manchester United. I was like, So he said, they're going to make an offer for you tomorrow. I said, okay. And they did. But one of their prerequisites for it was that apparently they'd made a bid for me in the past, and they was told they couldn't do it now, they would have to do it at the end of the season. They wasn't going to sell me during the season. But this time round they said, we need him now because we need to sign him before December because we need him for the second phase of the Champions League that starts in January. So I was given all this information, and Ray said, look, there's nothing you can do. So I got on quite well with the then chairman, Richard Thompson, and he could probably tell you this story as well. So I called him and I said, look, I know Man United have made an offer. And he said to me, do you want to go? And I said, look, it's Man United. So he went to me, okay. He said, let me speak to the manager. So he said, I'll come back to you in a day or two. So he spoke to Jerry, and Jerry could tell you this story as well. He spoke to Jerry, he said, look, Man United made an offer, Les wants to go, I think we won't stand in his way. So Jerry resigned. So the chairman called me back and he said, look,
Jerry resigned on the back of you leaving?
Jerry had always said that if they were going to sell me, that he would leave. And so Jerry resigned. And the chairman came back to me and said, I can't lose my manager and my star striker in the same week. So you need to give me a bit of time on this, Les. So I said, totally understood it. Came back to me a few days later and he said, I think I might resolve this. But I've got some good news and some not so good news. So I said, well, okay, well, hit me with it. So he said, well, the good news is I've spoken to Ray Wilkins and he's going to come back as manager. He said, but he's only coming back on one condition, that we don't sell you till the end of the season. So I started laughing. I said, how can he say that? He's the one that called me and told me about Man United. So anyway, Ray came through the door and I said, Razor. And he said, just taught you an important lesson in football. You look after number one in this game. And I mean, some of the press had got hold of this because, I was playing games and I always remember playing against West Ham. and us beating them at Upton Park, I think it was 4-2, and I scored a couple of goals, and the headlines were Les Miserable, and everyone was saying that I was miserable because I hadn't gone to Man United. And then he went, did he look miserable today? You see him play today, did he look miserable? And so there was a lot of this talk, and then I think we had discussed it. That probably come the end of the season was probably the right time for me to leave.
I mean, you're on the verge of going to Manchester United, and then all of that happens. Jerry leaves, Ray becomes manager, and you don't get the move. How long did it take you to get over that and just completely focus on QPR again? And did you begrudge anyone?
No, I'm a firm believer in life in what's meant to be will be. So I didn't I had the best season. I scored 26 goals in all competitions that year. So I went on, just carried on doing what I was supposed to do. And I know in the past, players have kicked up a fuss and thrown their toys out the pram and instigated the move. I was never going to do that. This club had been really good to me in terms of my playing career. And there's not a lot of loyalty in football or in life in general. But like I said, the club have been really good to me, and I just carried on playing. I thought what will be, and if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. If it's not meant to happen, it won't happen. Since
then, I'm sure in the intervening period, what's over 20 years since that happened, you must have come across Sir Alex Ferguson, like when you played against United, when you've met him on the pitch, that kind of thing. Was it ever spoken about? What did he say to you? Never ever spoke to him about it. Never even mentioned it to him. The only person I was at the Royal Lancaster once. I had a meeting at the Royal Lancaster. Martin Edwards was there, and he was the CEO at the time, and he mentioned the story to me, and it didn't go into as much of detail as I went into, but he did say to me, look, we tried to sign you, and we thought we was close to doing it, and then it didn't happen, and then the story of Kevin Keegan calling Manchester United for Keith Gillespie, and then Fergie said, all right, I'll give you Keith if you give me Andy Cohen, and that was that's what happened, and the rest is history. And then when I went to Newcastle, Keegan always said to me, I was always trying to buy you to play up front with Andy Cole, but unfortunately Andy moved on to Manchester United. Yeah, because he went January '95, and then that summer there's obviously a hole that needs filling at Newcastle United, and off you went to Newcastle 3 years potentially after you'd heard of all their interest. How did you find out that time, or was it an open secret by then? I think again it was well documented that me and myself and Ray were going to speak at the end of the season, but it would look likely that I was going to leave the football club. And I always remember we went on an end of season trip to Barbados, and we had a few games to play out there. So I always remember Aston Villa were out there at the time. They were playing in Trinidad and Tobago because of the White York, and then they were coming across to play in Barbados as well. And I spoke to Doug Ellis, and he'd said to me at the time, he said, do you know that we've got first option on you? So I said, first option? So he said, yeah. He said, I've spoken to Richard Thompson, and we got first option on you. I said, what does that mean? He said, we're going to be allowed to talk to you first. And I said, really? So I said, I didn't know I was leaving. So he laughed, and he said, no, well, I think if we match the bid or any bid, or we make a bid where I've been told that we'll be allowed to speak to you. So he said, would you come? I said, well, if you bid and they accept the bid, then I'll come and speak to you. And that's what I did. Come the end of the season, Aston Villa were the first team to make a bid. And I remember travelling up to Birmingham and going to see Doug in his box. He had his little dog. He had a little dog in the office. And we sat in there and he started talking about contracts and everything else. And I've got to be honest with you, he offered me everything I asked for. At the time, they had a policy that all the players had to live within a 5-mile radius of the ground and the training ground. And he said, I'll allow you to live in St Albans, where I live. And he said, so we're giving you absolutely everything you want. And then what I did was I asked for a ridiculous wage, because I knew that Newcastle wanting to speak to me, Kevin Keegan wanted to speak to me. So I asked for a ridiculous wage, thinking, yeah, it'll go get out of my office. And he sat there and he went, if I give that to you, you've got to sign today. And my agent looked at me, we went into another box. My agent looked at me and he went, did you hear what he just said? And I went, yeah. I said, but this ain't really about money for me. This is about making the right move that I think is going to accelerate my career.
And at the time, with all due respect to Aston Villa, I saw that as more as a sideward step rather than an upward step, because they'd finished behind us in the league that season, and they were very much in a rebuilding programme. After speaking to Aston Villa, I came back to London and met Kevin Keegan. I remember sitting in a hotel with him, and again, like, walked in there and there's Kevin Keegan sitting there waiting to talk to me. And then my agent at the time, turned around straight away and he said, "Keegan, I need to tell you what Aston Villa have offered Les." And to be fair to him, he said, "We can't get to those numbers. But what we can tell him is he'll come to a football club where it will accelerate his football, where he will be an absolute superstar if he gets it right." And he said, "I'm sure he'll get it right." And you know, I spoke to him for 5 minutes. I was convinced I was going to Newcastle. Like I said, it wasn't a financial decision then. It was a footballing decision for me. I remember playing with QPR and we beat Newcastle up at St James's Park 2-1. And I remember walking back up the tunnel and going into our change rooms and saying to the boys, "Can you imagine playing in front of this week in, week out?" And then all of a sudden, this opportunity is presented to me by, you know, Kevin Keegan, one of the heroes of me growing up. You know, if there was an icon player that you looked at, it was Kevin Keegan. And I just felt if there was anyone that I was going to learn how to be a better centre forward off, who better than Kevin Keegan? So, you know, I spoke to him for about 10 minutes and sort of was convinced that was the right place for me. And then at the time, Tottenham there were big rumours about Tottenham, and then I got a call. But the rumour was that I was 28 years of age, and Alan Sugar wouldn't spend $6 million on a 28-year-old. He said no chance. But then I got a call saying that, "Look, Tottenham want to speak to you." And I said, "There's no point. I've already shaken hands with Kevin Keegan, and I was a man. If I shake hands with you, that's me. That's done. It's dusted." And I'd shaken hands with Kevin Keegan, saying like I was coming.
Just give us an insight on what he was like to play under, because you had a fantastic first season. There was like 29 goals there in your first season at St James's Park. What did he do to bring the best out of you?
Put better players around me. With all due respect to the boys at Queen Park Rangers, I had a very good team. We had a very good footballing team at QPR. I just think in terms of players, just went up another level, and he was committed to playing out and out attacking football. One of the things he said in the changing rooms right at the start of the season, he said, "I think I bought the best header of the ball in the league. He's a monster. We need to feed him. We need to make sure we get the ball in." So he said, he went to David Ginali, "Your job," and he said, "Keith Gillespie, your job, just get the ball in the box for him. And I don't want you to put it on his head, he'll find it." And you know, those two boys for me in that first season were absolutely fantastic. And
Newcastle so close to winning the league, 12-point lead, it disappeared. When you reflect, can you put your finger on why that happened? There's always that talk about when Asprilla joined, that was the turning point.
Yeah,
what was it from a player's perspective?
I think too many of us lost form. To pin it on just Asprilla would be wrong. He was an addition to the squad. What was free flowing for us early part of the season was Keith Gillespie going down the right, David Gennaro down the left, me up front, and Peter Beardsley behind. When Asprilla came in, he went behind me and Peter, so I moved out to the right because Keith Gillespie got injured. And then just the flow of how we were playing just wasn't quite the same. And that's probably what it was, more than being Asprilla's fault.
One of the most famous moments in that season, perhaps in Premier League history, you know what I'm going to say, the Kevin Keegan meltdown, it's called now.
But I'll tell you, you can tell him now, if you're watching it, we're still fighting for this title, and he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
You're watching that. What's going through your head when you're watching that?
To be honest, you know, things weren't as sophisticated as they are now. And in terms of us, we just played Leeds, and so all the boys were on the bus. He's doing the interview, and we can't get Sky on the bus at the time because where the bus was situated, we couldn't see it. So he gets on the bus, and we all go back to Newcastle, and no one knows this rant has happened until I get home. And a night game like that, I always struggled to sleep after. I always used to struggle to sleep after a night game. Adrenaline was still pumping through my body, so I switched the TV on and watching the replay of the game, as you do. And as the rant's going on, I picked the phone up and I called Warren Barton. And I went, "Are you still awake?" "You know, kind of. I am now." I said, "You need to switch the TV on." So he switched the TV on and he saw it. And then we went into training the next day, And obviously all the boys had seen it. We'd gone in for a warm down, and we were loving it. The boys were loving it. They were all like,
good phrase to use there.
Yeah. We were loving it. The boys were like, and everywhere you went, all the boys were just saying, I love it. And we just saw it as, and I just saw it as like, everybody wants players to wear their hearts on their sleeves and show their passion and desire. At the time, we just felt that's what Kevin was doing. He was always heart on his sleeve, but unfortunately, you do that as a manager, it's a sign of weakness. And everyone says it was a meltdown. We didn't really see it as that at the time.
So you just missed out on the league, and then come the summer, enter Alan Shearer. £15 million. What's going through your head then? Are you feeling positive, but also, where am I fitting in with this now?
I was privy to a conversation. We were just about to go to pre-season, and Kevin Keegan, I'd gone up the escalators, and Terry McDermott came up to me, came running up the escalator, said, Gaffer wants to speak to you. So I went to him, you need to come and see me in duty free, mate. I'm kind of load up. We're going to the Far East, so I need to load up. So he was going, no, he needs to see, he might not be coming on the plane. So I said, well, he better be coming on the plane, mate. I ain't going back down there. And he's going, no, he started laughing and joking. He was going, no, Liz, you need to come down. So I went back down and I said, listen, plane's going on now. I need to load up. What's going on? So he goes, look, I need a quick chat with you. So he said, I'm going to sign Alan Shearer. He said, it's going to be a record fee for this country. He goes, but first and foremost, I want you to know you will not be leaving this football club. He said, there'll be loads of rumours out there that you'll be leaving because other people believe that you two can't play together. He said, I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong, but I really believe that you two can complement each other and play together. So I was like, okay, brilliant. And as I went to the street off, he goes, I've got one other thing. So I said, what's that? He gone, the number 9 shirt.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you.
I went, what about it? So he went to me, he's asked me, could he have the number 9 shirt? And I went, what did you say? He said, well, I said I'd ask Les. So he said, Alan's worn it all his life. Everywhere he's gone, he's worn the number 9 shirt, he's had it all his life. So I went, yeah, so have I. And he went, I just didn't think it meant much to you. So it didn't mean that much to me that you thought you'd give it to me when I came here. So he's going, no, that's just a number. He said, he said to me, when he was at Liverpool, he said he was given the number 7. And he said it didn't really mean nothing to me. It was just a shirt. I'd have worn 10, I would have worn 11 to play for Liverpool. He said, brilliant. Is that why you got 7 on your chain? Like that, There's a pendant. And so he laughed and I said, listen, Kev, the mere fact you've asked me about it means you wanted to have it. You're the manager of this football club. If that's what you want, that's what you got to do. I said, I don't blame Alan, because I probably would have done the same thing. I would have asked for the number 9 shirt if I could get it. And I think from that moment on, my relationship was never the same never the same again with Kevin Keegan.
And it stemmed from that?
Yeah, I just, for a year you told me I was the best centre forward in the country and this and this, and I just felt there was a little bit of a wedge after that. So
when he left, what was your reaction then? Was it mixed then?
Oh no, listen, I thought he was a very, very good manager. When I say he was a very good manager, in terms of the way I wanted to play football, I enjoyed playing football, he was fantastic. When he left, we was disappointed because we felt we was on the cusp of something. But I think, being totally honest with you, I think us not winning the league the year before really took something out of him. It took something out of all of us, to be honest, but it really took something out of him because we were so close, and we were being lauded around the country as everybody's second favourite team, and I think it really took something out of him. And when he left, I was disappointed that he left. I wasn't looking for him to go, you know what I mean? But things started to go not pear-shaped, but I think it was to do with the club being floated and stuff like that. So when he left, and I was disappointed to see him go.
Did you speak to him?
I thought it was a great fit. He kind of went into hiding for a while, but then we had a conversation afterwards,
And any issues that you had with him when you said the relationship wasn't the same as when you joined, did you clear those up?
I think we was both aware of kind of like our was feeling, how he was feeling, and stuff like that. But we're you're in a professional game, and we were very professional about what we were doing and how we were doing it. Do you know what I mean? And when I say the relationship was never the same, it wasn't as good as it was before. But I still had the utmost respect for him, and thought he was a good manager, and that was just that.
And from Kevin Keegan, enter Kenny Dalglish. What were the differences there?
I couldn't understand what Kenny had to say. I remember in his very first game for us, sitting in the changing rooms, and Alan's sitting opposite me, and he's doing a team talk, and you're looking around the changing room, and I'm sort of like, footballers they're all the same. When the manager's talking, they all want to believe that they understand what he's saying, and sometimes you don't. And I was looking around thinking, I ain't got a clue what he's saying. So Alan's like, had his head down, he looked up at me and he's gone like that. He's kind of like smiled. And I've gone like that. So Dalglish, he stopped and he's gone, what's funny? I've gone, oh, nothing. No, share it with everyone, what's funny? And I went, nothing. He went, no, we'd all like to know what you think's funny, Les. So I went, okay, I don't understand the words you're saying, like, you know what I mean? Oh, it's that, is it? Like that, yeah. And then he carried on, but and then Alan was peeing himself laughing, like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was my first introduction to Kenny. So I thought, I ain't gonna last too long here, like.
So you say you weren't going to last too long. The love affair, if you want to call it that, with Newcastle ended that summer, 1997. By then, had you, in your own mind, thought this is the right time, and you wanted to go?
Not at all.
You wanted to stay at the club?
Not at all. Did I want to leave Newcastle United? I was there for 2 years, and I would have spent the rest of my career there. I've got to be honest with you. I thought it was a great club. I thought we was on the cusp of winning something. But I think managers, certainly British managers that I've come across, when they go into a club, they like to change it, because if they don't change it and that team goes on to be successful, everyone talks about it being the previous manager's team. So, Kenny had his own ideas. He came in, and they needed to raise funds. He said he did say to me, look, and to be fair to Kenny, he said to me, I don't want you to leave the club, but the club are telling me that I need to raise funds and I need to find a way to do it, and this, that. And he was pretty honest with me. And he said, I really don't want to lose you, but I didn't really believe it. I've got to be honest. And then the club started bidding, and Tottenham came up with paying another $6 million. And so, I'd been there for 2 years. I was 30 years of age, nearly at 31. So it was great, probably good business. Newcastle saw it as good business. There was a couple of other clubs that had come into the fore, Liverpool, but they only wanted to pay 3.5. David Pleat was at Sheffield Wednesday, and they were willing to pay 6 million at the time. So I remember speaking to David Pleat, but I kind of thought if I'm going to leave Newcastle and Tottenham, boyhood club, that's where I was going to go. I knew the club was in a bit of turmoil at the time, but speaking to Alan Shearer, I said to him, we walked around his garden, and to be honest with you, I don't know if they can see outside it, his garden was probably as big as this training ground. It took us about 2 days to walk around his garden. But I remember walking around his garden, and he absolutely convinced me that Tottenham was the right club for me in terms of what he wanted to do, where he wanted to take the club. I was so convinced by his passion and his ideas for Tottenham that I thought, yeah, this is where I'm going to come. And I'm sort of like coming to a club that's probably in a bit of turmoil, and it certainly was when I went there, but I supported them as a boy, so dream come true.
Shearer actually broke his ankle that summer. Had you already left when that happened?
No.
So did they try and say, well,
yeah,
you're not going anywhere now?
Yeah. So basically, I was in a restaurant on a Saturday night. So basically, what happened was they was going to the Umbro tournament on a Saturday. I got the call on Thursday night that Newcastle had accepted the bid from Tottenham, and that they wanted me to come down for a medical. So I thought, okay, well, the medical's going to be Monday now, because it was like you had Friday. So then I got a call saying, no, they want you to come down, do the medical on Friday afternoon, and then you'd meet Alan Shearer on the Sunday. So I was like, geez. So I'd pack all my stuff up. I jumped in the car, and on my way back to London, I stopped off at the training ground, which was in Durham at the time. I stopped at the training ground and went in and said, bye to everyone. And then Douglas asked me to come in the office. I went in the office and his final words were for me, he said, I hope the talks break down. He said, I don't really want you to go. So I said, okay. But then went to London, had the medical. On a Saturday night I was in a restaurant and then got a call from my agent saying, Alan's broken his ankle in the Umbro tournament. And I went, no, you're joking. And he said, yeah, no, unfortunately he's broken. It looks like he might be out for the season. I was like, what? He's going, yeah. So don't worry, I'll give him a call. I said, I'll give him a call now. I said, do you know if he's out of the operation? And he goes, yeah, I think he's up. And I said, I'll give him a call now. So I went to put the phone down. He went, no, hang on a minute. So I went, what? He said, they want you to come back. I went, really? So he said, yeah. He said, but they're not allowed to speak to you. They're not allowed to speak to. They can only speak to you through me because they accepted the bid from Tottenham. Unless I turned Tottenham down, but they weren't able to approach me. So basically, they came down on the Sunday, spoke to my agent, and said, "Look, this is what we'd pay Les to come back." So then he was able to go to Tottenham and say, "Well, you got to match that. You got to beat that," you know. And I felt I was shabbily treated by the club. I've got to be honest with you. And I remember speaking to Alan on the phone and he said to me, look, this is my boyhood club and I love it and I'd love you to come back. But the way you've been treated, I'd understand if you didn't. And and I kind of made up my mind that because of the way that I've been treated, you know, supporters, I felt bad for the supporters because I really wanted to go back because I really enjoyed playing for them. But I just felt the club in itself, the way it done what it did weren't right.
Looking back now, any regrets?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You wish you'd stayed?
Yeah. I think, you know, I'd gone from a club, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way to Tottenham, as you know, people go through their careers and say they have no regrets. That was probably from a footballing standpoint was probably the worst decision I'd made. Because
that's very surprising for someone who supported the club as a boy.
Yeah, the club was in unbelievable turmoil, and I didn't realise how bad it was until I got there. You know, there was in my first 5 years, I'd fought 4 different managers and a change of board. So that tells you the kind of turmoil that the club was in.
Let me get this straight now. When you look back, and because you felt you were shabbily treated by Newcastle, when you look back now, would you just say, just grit your teeth, go talk to them again, and just go back? Yeah,
because I made a decision based on pride, rather than a decision based on what was the best thing for my footballing career. When I left QPR and I went to Newcastle, that was a footballing decision because I felt I was going to become a better player, and I think I did become a better player. When I left Newcastle and went to Tottenham, probably it was taken out of my hands a little bit, and I allowed my pride to get in the way of making what was the right decision for my footballing career. But I enjoy playing for Spurs.
Because obviously boyhood club and everything, despite
exactly.
all the turmoil. When it was 6 years, it's nearly 6 years at Spurs, and then
maybe a little bit more than that. Yeah.
And then West Ham. I mean, that's a difficult move in itself, isn't it? Given the rivalry between the two clubs. At that point, though, did you want to leave Spurs?
Yes, I'd got to a stage where I suppose I had a bit of a fallout with Glenn Hoddle at the time. The season before that, I was on 15 or 16 goals, and then I fell and shattered my wrist. At the time, I think we'd had about 10, 11 games to go, and I thought I was going to get to 20 goals, and I'd have been the first player to get to 20 goals in a long time at Spurs. And I just felt, I was that confident that I thought, nah, no problems, I'm going to get to these 20 goals. And then I did my wrist, and the surgeon turned around and he said, well, you won't play again this season. I went to him, are you nuts? I'll play again this season. I said, I ain't done my wrist. You know what I mean? But that was it. I kind of like 15 goals, and that was it for the season. And then pre-season started, and I was probably 2 weeks behind everybody else. But I came back, joined in, and was doing all the training. I had all these different casts made for my wrist, and started training with the group and all that, and got close to the first game of the season. And Glenn went to me, you're 2 weeks behind the rest of the boys. He said, but you've been on fire in training. He goes, I want to take you to the first game. He said, I ain't going to start you. I'm going to put you on the bench. And we were playing Everton away. We went to Goodison, I was on the bench, and then he went, You ready? You're going to warm up? It was 1-1, and as I started warming up, I was getting pelters like that. The supporters were like, sit down, you're useless, Ferdinand. I was like, okay, no problem. I was on the pitch for 5 minutes and scored, and we went 2-1 up. But in the end, they got a goal, but we drew 2-2. Then the next game at home, we played, I think it was Sheffield Wednesday. Scored the first goal, we won 2-1, so I got 2-2. We'd signed Robbie Keane that week. So Robbie was in the stand and watched the game. So I'm 2-2. And the next week he went, you're 2 weeks behind everyone else, so I'm gonna have to rest you. So I can't tell you what I actually said, but I didn't quite agree with his opinion. I said, I've got 2 goals in 2 games and you want to tell me you're going to drop me now because you signed Robbie Keane? Okay, good. So again, our relationship was never the same again. And then it got to January, and I said, look, I need to go, and he was going, no, you're going to play a lot more in the second half of the season. He said, you're right, I am, but it won't be for you.
Wow.
And that was it. You know, West Ham, they were trying to do a deal because I think they were trying to bring Michael Ricketts at Bolton to Tottenham and wanted me. I was like, going to Bolton now. I said, no. I said, I'm not going. I'll go where I want to go, you know. And I knew there were a few clubs that were willing to take me. So West Ham were one of them. And I knew it was going to be a difficult transition because of the rivalry between the two sides, but ended up opting for West Ham. And when I got there, couldn't believe the players that were there and the situation they were in.
It ended up being a relegation with, I mean, I'm going to reel off a few of the names: Joe Cole, Michael Carrick, Defoe, Di Canio, Glenn Johnson, Canute.
I know.
But it's the biggest points total
ever, yeah, to go down.
To go down, 42 points.
Which was unfortunate.
How hard was that one to take, given the squad?
I remember getting there and looking at the squad of players and thinking to myself, how is this Trevor Sinclair? I was thinking Andrew, I was thinking, how's this team in there? And I was watching training and they were popping the ball around, David James in goal, they was popping the ball. I was like, they look all right. 2 days later we played Charlton away. I went in at half time and I went, yeah, I can see the problem, chaps. Like no one wanted the ball because the supporters behind, every time someone give it away, they would give them pelters. Right. They'd all gone into their shells and like saying, listen, there's no way we ain't going to get out of this if we carry on like this. We all need to pull together, chaps. And it was a shame, really, because like I said, there was a good group of players there, but it was just turmoil within the club again.
So then that ended in relegation, and then you go from West Ham to a newly promoted team in Leicester City. Can you explain who was behind that move and how that came about?
It was really strange because West Ham was saying to me that they wanted to keep me, but Glenn Roeder had a brain aneurysm and had been in hospital the latter part of the season, and Trevor Brooking took over. Yeah. And then there was a load of stuff talking about them wanting to keep me for the following season and hopefully get themselves promoted back into the Premier League and stuff like that. And I remember I went off to New York and I was in conversations with them all the time. I said, listen, chaps, getting near the start of the season. People are back in pre-season training. We ain't sorted this out yet. And then I started getting calls from different people saying, what you doing and blah, 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 blah. And then, Mickey Adams was at Leicester and they'd just come up and stuff. And, I went to speak to him and I liked what he had to say and what they were going to try and achieve. And, they'd done pretty well the season before. And I kind of opted to that for that. I spoke to Gordon Strachan, who was at Southampton at the time. But James Beattie had just had the season of his life there and he was going to start. And I was thinking, I ain't going to travel and be there. I want to play. If I'm going to carry on, I want to play. And then, so I went to Leicester and again we got relegated, just weren't quite good enough.
On a personal level, though, it's 13 goals.
Yeah.
Was some return for a team that's got relegated.
Do you know what? To be honest with you, Dharmesh, I thought to myself at the time, maybe this is the time to hang my boots out. Right. I didn't want to end on a relegation. I got to be honest. I'd spent all my career in the Premier League, and I was like, it's not a good way to go out. But no, my body's probably telling me it's time to jack it in. And then I got a call from Sam Allardyce. And he was probably, at the time, probably the most advanced in terms of data, the data that football clubs used. He was probably, and Bolton at the time, were probably the most advanced of any club that I'd been at and seen in the way that they used it. And I met up with Sam and he went to me, you can't retire. I said, try telling my body that, Sam, my body's telling me it's time to retire. And he convinced me. to play for another year. He said, look, we've got all your stats. He said, forget the goals. He said, we've got the stats of your running and your this, that and the other. He said, you still got too much to offer football. And kind of like, you know, the ego kicks in a little bit and you kind of like that. Yeah. Or maybe I'll have a go. And he said to me, again, Kevin Davies had his best season of goals return. I think he scored 11 or 12 that season. I think I stood scored more than him. So he said, he's going to start, but you're going to play a load of games for us. And then I got there and team got off to a flyer. It was the year they finished in Europe. And I was finding that I'm sitting on the bench, sitting on the bench. So I went to see him and I had an honest conversation with him. I said, Sam, you convinced me to play for another year. And when you convinced me, I was convinced I was going to play for another year. And I remember him saying, you're earning good money and you're sitting on the bench. And I said, that's not good enough for me, mate. If I'm going to play, if I'm going to be part of a team, I want to play, I want to contribute. Sitting on the bench makes me feel like I'm not contributing. I don't want to do that. So he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I think go somewhere else. I need to go somewhere I can play. So he was like, I've got to be honest, I've had a load of calls for you, including QPR. And it was really funny. I sat in his office and he said, I've had a chat with Ian Holloway. And I've said to him, look, I'll have a chat with Les, but I don't want this put in the press. This is between us and we'll have a conversation. So I'm sitting in his office having this conversation, comes up on your channel that QPR trying to bring Les Ferdinand back to QPR.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't going to say I was going to put that out there, sorry.
and he went, that's it, you're not going to QPR. And that was it.
Les Ferdinand, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
How things could have been different.
Yeah, they could have been very different.